Hello, everyone. Thanks for your patience while we had a little technical difficulty there. Thanks for making the time to join us this evening. My name is Michael. I'm the events coordinator and publicist at Annie Bloom's Books. For those of you who aren't familiar with the store, we're located in Southwest Portland, Oregon, in the heart of Multnomah Village, where we've been around for 43 years now. We're open on weekdays from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., weekends from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Our website is always open. You can shop day and night at annieblooms.com. We offer curbside pickup, in-store pickup, and also a couple of different shipping options and local delivery. I'm going to put the event website in here again into the chat. Where's everyone? Everyone in meeting, there we go. So you can go over there and buy all of these poets' wonderful books. There are a couple links in there directly to the presses for Amie's and Sara's books. So those little blue links there to get their books from them because our distributor doesn't have them. So I wanted to make sure you'd be able to get those books. We've got some great events coming up on Saturday at 2 p.m., a little afternoon event. We have California author Sana Balagamwala with Karen Carbo, formerly of Portland. They're going to be talking together as Sana's new book. It's a novel set in Pakistan called House Number 12, Block Number 3. Kids book author, local Portland author, Carrie Tillotson has her book coming out next Tuesday called Counting to Bananas. That's a 5 p.m. event on Tuesday, the 12th. And then we have another poetry reading a week from tonight. Both of the poets are on local press, The Poetry Box, Linda Ferguson and Mimi Gurman. So tune in for that one. Tonight, we have a quartet of poets for National Poetry Month. John Sibley Williams, Ashley Toliver, Amie Zimmerman, and Sara Lupita Olivares. There's going to be a Q&A at the end, so feel free to type questions in the chat and I can read those to the poets, or you can come on the screen if you dare and ask your questions that way. You can click the little blue hand icon. This is the reactions menu down there at the bottom of the screen. Let me tell you about our poets. John Sibley Williams is the author of 7 poetry collections, including Scale Model of a Country at Dawn. That's one of the new ones. The Drowning House, another new one. As One Fire Consumes Another. We had him at Annie Bloom's in person a few years ago for that one. Skin Memory and Summon, a 27-time Pushcart nominee. Wow. John is the winner of numerous awards, including the Wabash Prize for Poetry, Philip Booth Award, Phyllis Smart Young Prize, and Locks Miller Prize. He serves as editor of the Inflectionist Review and founder of the Caesura Poetry Workshop Series. Previous publishing credits include Best American Poetry, Yale Review, Verse Daily, North American Review, Prairie Schooner, and Tri-Quarterly. Shows no, okay. Ashley Toliver is the author of Spectra on Coffee House Press, a finalist for the 2018 Believer Book Awards. She teaches poetry at the Attic Institute here in Southeast Portland and serves as poetry editor at Moss, a journal of the Pacific Northwest. Her work has been supported by fellowships from Oregon Literary Arts, the Cave Canem Foundation, and the Academy of American Poets. She received her MFA from Brown University in 2013. Amie Zimmerman is from Portland, Oregon. Her work has been published or is forthcoming in West Branch, Sixth Finch, the Iowa Review, Diagram, and Paper Bag, among others. She is the author of 4 chapbooks, including Compliance, and with artist Samantha Wall, the collaboration 31 Days / The Self. That's from last year, and that's the link we have on the website is for that one. Currently, Amie works as a hairstylist and PhD student in upstate New York. Sara Lupita Olivares is the author of Migratory Sound from the University of Arkansas Press. That's another one you can buy directly from the press by clicking that link on the webpage, which was selected as winner of the 2020 Canto Mundo Poetry Prize. Her poems have appeared or are forthcoming in the New York Times, Black Warrior Review, Salt Hill Journal, Waxwing, and elsewhere. She currently lives in northern New Mexico and is an assistant professor of English at New Mexico Highlands University. Welcome, John, Ashley, Amie, and Sara. I think Sara is reading first.
I love the spirit fingers that are going on. Thank you so much, Michael, for hosting us. And I've actually never been to Portland, and I feel like I need to go now. since I'm being hosted there kind of virtually. So thank you all for being here from all the places that you are. So I will start reading from my book, Migratory Sound, and then I'll read a couple of new poems as well. And I'll try to be mindful of my time. And yeah, I don't know if I should tell you anything about the book first. Yeah, a lot of it is informed, I think, from, I guess, my own sense of movement, and then sort of exploring my family's generational sense of movement as well. And the history of them coming up from Mexico up to Michigan for seasonal work in the fields and factory labor. And so I think within this book, I was really interested in the divisions of place, specifically like in the Midwest, and looking at the fields, and then also the prevalence of the factories. And both of my parents were factory workers, and so kind of having that as this like constant sort of symbol or presence, I think, within the book. So I will start reading. Night. Before loss, there is habit, the moon implied beyond a fence. Outside, a goat crosses the pavement, hooves circle in the snow, a broken jaw reassembled. I begin to make a house despite the highway. What song into the child's ear subtracts an animal's forage end to end? The wrong leaves have been eaten. Each absent correspondence bleats. You misinterpret the animal's mouth as objectivity, each unparticular way of seeing. Let's see here. All right, I'll read Glimpse. So this is a ghazal. I'm not fully sure on how we say it, because I've heard people say like more like, I don't know, like a throatier version of ghazal or gazelle. So, but the form is defined by couplets and the repeated word within one couplet, and then you're supposed to say your name in the final couplet. So I think that it's just a really interesting form because of how it sort of accumulates as you go along with it. So, and John and I were talking when we got here about shorter poems, and I feel like this is kind of magically I wrote a longer poem because I usually sort of like will stop, but this, I don't know, I kept going. So, Glimpse. It takes nothing, the many flowers beheaded, the grass empty and uninhabited, transplanted, the roots hang anonymous and empty. The letter begins in faint humility. A wheel without spokes radiates the unseen value of timid sound, its response empty. In the drawings of seas and mountains, a doe spotted back camouflaged, the sea nearly uprooted, where rocks emerge and empty. Sometimes a person posed in a garden, the portrait peering back. In other paintings, the flowers are cut, placed in a vase, this movement empty. The public and private conflated in a dream sequence, the sinew of my own intrusion. We find the map, name scribbled, following empty. There is a complete list, and I wonder what occurs when order disappears out of forgetfulness or in being diminished by wear. Intention then empty. Surrender or lack of will in nature becomes unnoticeable in its disorder. A perfectly intact bird dead under the dogwood, its shadow cast empty. When bending the neck to drink from the river, when tilting the head back or forward to sleep, the invisible navigation embedded followed empty. It is not a mistake when the rustling quiets and then stops. The animal remains hidden. Lupita meaning little wolf, one's own habitat empty. Okay. Okay, so this poem started out sort of as a sonnet, and then I, mingled it in the editing process. And I think, with a sonnet, I just love that you can sort of, I don't know, like, I think a lot of times anything that's 14 lines, you can just say like, oh, it's a sonnet. But I love just that sort of shift that is able to occur within a sonnet. Like, I don't know, that it sort of requires the mind to move a little bit. So circuit. Somewhere a bow's shadow contradicts its shape. Any instance in the ghost will unhinge its loneliness where it recognizes its past. In one version, the pasture is a complicated tradition where moss gathers on the roof, the mind sees a plain. In another version, the pasture feels the doe's teeth. In a forethought, the many flowers give, where the seen and implied become patterned. Another's currency is abstraction. Victor's hand cut off in a machine at the paper mill down the street each morning, the sulfuric air. My inheritance is a dialogue of transgressions, the sound and shape of the landscape omitted. To make beauty in some sense imperishable. Moss circles the bough until it becomes consumed. What beauty consoles the yellow leaves? Half rotted, the short stalk bends. The half of my body made of you remains speechless. The sedge in a finch's mouth, where in the torso guilt grows bone. Small openings reveal nothing, but I press the parts into place until they become formless and tilt away from conscience. The field as a circle. How many boxes have you filled without thought? A gray fish floats across the water. We tie the mattress on top of the car and doubt that the plane feels followed. How you negotiate yourself from place to place. Yellow light frames the landscape. A story begins long ago, but the ground is colorless and vague. What is underneath has been separated root from root. Exposure yields an unrequited falling away, but to pull the field bare, no doubt committed to memory. Let's see here. Okay, and then I'll read one more, and then I'll read a few Dune poems. Clarities. Under the moon, a tide, fish eggs hatch in the reeds. A stone broken open reveals no gleam. Out of one conversation, 3 small accusations. While the plum skin falls, the flies pause and watch. A motionless lake, the moored bottom shifts. Through hierarchy, a sound quiets. Where leaves blow open, the wet dirt. A landscape without concurrence. Having watched, the animal too buries its dead. Okay. All right, so I'll read a couple of new poems. The collection that I'm working on now kind of circles around notions of belief and disbelief and certainty. And it explores the tradition of retablos as they're these little paintings and installations of a lot of times, like, for people who have crossed the border or just been through some sort of, I don't know, like traumatic thing where they have moved on beyond it. And so there's that sort of self-reflexivity and I think like a really interesting communal quality to it too, of like contextualizing. So I have, some of those going on, and then I'll probably read two of these. All right, retablos. Is it your privilege speaking fragmented? I was already there, my toes pressed into the mossy earth. In sight, the apparition contradicts its context. When saying there's not a dispute, tourmaline clouds, the animals in stasis begin to disperse. Each account requires a self-reflexivity, hands upward, face averted to speak. It is not your desperation met in the silence, but a sharp edge, the walls gone cold. Worry dictated the animals, the light dimming over the grass, though to love its absence, a scenario chosen over the unknown. Okay. Points of orientation. Across the field, stray dogs move out of sight. What darkness illuminates becomes plain by morning. When a ring appears on St. Catherine's finger, she scalds herself over and over again until another appears. With each form, a purpose can be supposed. When looking at the mountain, there's no visible measure of what exists outside of view. Each jet accrues until the body finds equilibrium. Gestured towards the door, there's doubt if the door even exists. Suppose I mean it while I'm saying it though, asked Wittgenstein. Consequentially, the assurance that one does know it can accomplish anything. Okay, and then another, I guess, like part of the manuscript that started to happen is I listen to a lot of crime podcasts. So I love, yeah, Crime Junkie. If does anyone listen to that? It's just, yeah, like murder. I shouldn't be watching or listening to them, but I do. And so I've been really interested in Juarez and just women working in factories along the border and just sort of like environmental racism and things like that, like just yeah, like near the border and sort of dumping waste and things. So Maquiadora. In a trunk in the flowers for 9 months, no bodies, no proof, no body, vanished. Then in a ditch between two intersections, a public means of saying, at 3:33 a.m., 3 minutes late and sent away. Strands of human hair, a pair of shoes, grasses clamped down. In unlit corners, a framed way the mind is shown. What leads theory beyond hearing to believing what is missing? Okay, and then I can end there on that happy poem. Thank you.
That was great. Ashley is up next. Ashley's muted.
Okay, amazing. Wow. Okay, somehow I also plugged my computer into my fiance's computer and half my screen is over there and I no longer control the mouse. So help. I thank you for your help. I was lost. Now I am found. Hi, Sarah, that was amazing. I love your poems. I have a book too. This is the book. It's called Spectra. And I'm going to read from it, but I think I'm going to jump around a bunch, which for some reason has never occurred to me before. I assume it like occurs to other people all the time, but it's never occurred to me to like go backward in jumping around, right? So, wow, late to the game, but here's what's happening. So I'm going to start with this central section of this book called Ideal Machine, and then read a couple poems out of that, which are all called Ideal Machines. We're just going to go straight on through. And then we'll mix it up a little bit, see what happens. All right, Ideal Machine. Here is where I take you, behind the eyes, a glistening star. Here is where I take you, bone thing I made, a gift, pull it out. Star in me, salt bright and still. Listen how the cut is made, across my face could move any feeling. Here is the sight I've dog-eared for you, taut as any waiting, my sudden fold of luck, pinched lightning, we can't put our hands on, but you do. My brain arriving through the darkness like streets mapping out, this mine, this mine, this mine. In future rites, I lie down on the operating table, glassy and overdue. The surgeons take roll in choirs, hands like night swimmers, bad water below the sea. Under lightest implication, the body breaks through. Under lightest implication, The crocuses push through peat as a gesture for belief. Hourglass and tool, meadow sharpened to blade. On the last day, the light, so easy to breathe. Hustle star, weaving the darkness around. A little let on the line, and faces go under a long way. Dear ophthalmologist, your hands wag the story I cleave to. On either side of my face, wave fingers, ask me to count them. Dear ophthalmologist, I am not very good at telling stories, how your hands muscle the black pinpricks in the paper, how the dark whistles around them, day a dumb animal limping through the grass. From the observation wing, we can see it gathering size. Slow and sensate, I enter the machine like a lover's black silk. My astronomer flipping on all the lights. Meat of the mind, wrung to transparent. He points to where the shine breaks open from seed. Hustle star, star in me. The bone first anatomical, then moth. Oh, don't we all saunter in innocently enough, like love, an uppercase L, love, stamen I, you metastasize, my sea glass, my meteor. In the morning, I drag the crane fly dead across the mirror. Seeping, I gather what's left. Legs curled to pills, one after another. In this universe, several species of matter destroy matter. In long conversation, mosses unbraid the trees from themselves, earth into air, into space where something else was. We are never not alone. We are never not alone. Outside the window, a line curves to curl, to kite string caught in the cypress, one end whorled to nest. There is light in us yet. Everywhere we look, tassels unravel into brighter and brighter knots. Okay, now we're going backwards. This is the first poem in the book. It's also my longest poem, speaking of poems. And you'll realize it's not very long at all, this longest poem of mine. I had an assignment. It came out of an exercise where we were to write 3 pages. And I wrote 1.5, just couldn't do it. Couldn't get there. Couldn't make it happen. There was nothing else. I don't know, nothing else to do, you know? I didn't get in trouble. And that's why I decided to put it in my book. Okay, kinesis. Though all bird-legged creatures fear the same distance, it is instinct that pulls them to standing. In the museum, their bodies like sea glass and astonishment. The specialist says we can classify species by measuring height with our hands. All but the smallest flamingos must stand 8 palm lengths from the earth. Their legs are the width of paper clips. This kind of gauging is necessary. To a child, the globe is cross-hatched, dark blue, and it is. Mathematics form a tent frame. In this way, a sunrise is one kind of blood, oxidizing. Today, I read in the New York Times that Africa is splitting in 2. Land is metastasizing, spilling open and sinking. Ethiopia is covered in holes. I say I'm speaking in present tense, but all scientists say we are watching an ocean growing at staggering speeds. Can we say this is a continent oceaning? Once I heard a father tell his oldest daughter, "You are a clear pool where light plays," though she had also been an island orbiting a large body. Is this a natural disaster? The thing we feared most in the fires was logic. We watched the flames leap from the field to the trees to the house in succession. Though we found it familiar, close in its grammar, most of us stayed inside. Today, Oakland firefighters are made out of paper. They write birch-soaked memoirs. They have lungs like parachutes and spit up sap oil. Our urgency comes because we too are upright, a vertical people. We are possessed by our margins. I am thinking of the mother who drowned her 3 boys, why she stopped first to undress them. If she was perfecting a displacement of water, plumbing a violent kinesis. It was late on the pier where one witness remembered. I saw a woman sitting on a bench, gazing at the water, occasionally looking from side to side as if she was waiting for someone. That's a real story that I read in the newspaper, Sara. True crime, true crimes. So many connections. Okay, let's go back to Ideal Machine. This is fun. All right, here we go. More Ideal Machines. These are the days outside of all days. My earth wheeling toward you, teeming with self split into jewels, relentless figures I hoarded so patiently. Who brought you here? Shadow behind my eyes to blot out the distinctions between things. Ellipsoidal planets, tethered by blood. My little muscitation, it was my didn't know. The fetus consumes the mother. The tumor consumes the mind. Dear son, I harvested you from this, as any winter saws the youngest spruce on the plain, silencer placed on the note and hummed there, repressive gesture frozen around the snuffed out kin. A lover is always on his way into the room, inside the mind. He wants to break the glass casing on the firm gray stump from the bulb. We wait for him. We wait for him. He wants to cut where the cells have listed something to do with his hands. He wants to find where what is burnished is buried, where the air snatches the light to hum against, the light like a grass blade tucked between the thumbs, lunettes of dark against the bone. He wants to catch me between his thumbs, the body strung with ornaments. They cannot fly, they can only stand still. We walk the little halls of my body, pale stepping stones, jarred mercury. This is still Ideal Machine. We're still on this journey. Surgeon, I wanted to love you, corrected, pulley, screw, lever, torque. I wanted to lie just there, underneath you, patient, silent as space. From the window, the bridge spans clean over the water, the most elegant way to cross the river, the most elegant way to split the face. I want to show you how decent it is to make something small so easy to find. Outside the body, you cue the instruments. I brace and practice, lifting my weight through gaps and belonging, the most elegant way to cross the river, the most elegant way to split the face. You open the woman I was like a flask, you said, just for me. You said, no going back. I think my dog is trying to leave. I'm gonna read one more after this. All right, buddy. We have to go when I open the door. Okay, great. Good time. Okay. It's always a risk, dog. So this is my last poem. And this poem is called Standing on the Lawn Outside Your House with a Match and a Gallon of Gasoline. This morning in the cupboard, I found your last quarter-inch of whiskey, settled amber in the mason jar, same burn on the horizon. The last Indian summer, you sat naked at the kitchen table, carving the nectarines free from their stones. When the cold math of winter arrived early that year, I thought the first fist you seamed into my cheekbone was to get to the proof, to the pit of the marriage. You asked if somewhere we find the itch of the lumber, do we find compassion for the axe blade that splits it? I used to lie down inside my own stitches and let the dawnlight farm their black to noon. Now I run like a ragged dog over the tight bow of their edges. It doesn't make any difference what angle I work my heart against them. I still don't know what kind of woman I am. But as the flame nears the fingers that trust the match, as close as the skin can stand it to singe, I call this the nerve to find out. That's the end. Yay!
That was wonderful. Thank you. John.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Sorry we couldn't be there in person this time.
Yeah, next
Ashley,
time.
Sarah, yeah, hopefully. And Sarah, Ashley, beautiful, beautiful reading. Such different voices and different tones, but similar themes, which I thought was great. And because of the guzzle previously read, I actually quickly pulled up a Pantoum to read, so we can pretend like we were writing from 100 years ago. Let's do this. Let's do this. I'm really excited about that one. But so anyway, I do have as Michael had referenced, 2 books that Annie Blooms has copies of each. So if you live in Portland, please go to Annie Blooms and not the evil Amazon to buy it, or the mostly evil Barnes and Nobles or any of the other evil places. So please go to Annie Blooms. Anyway, so I'm going to read just a couple poems from each book, but I do start all of my readings with the same poem in dedication to my mother, because from what I understand, she read to me every day. She read entire novels to me when I was in utero. So maybe that's why I started writing when I was 6 or 7. I started writing short stories. So this is to her. She passed some years back. But this poem is called Death is a Work in Progress. My mother says fox while gesturing toward an old red wagon abandoned in our yard for decades. Fox, a word so cavernous, her entire body vanishes into it. Body of misfiring electrons, scattered images, no contexts. Body that is mainly just a body now. No other animal knows how to be this incomplete. I think if you were a fox, coyotes would have eaten you by now. But I say, yes, Mom, I'll climb into that fox and let you pull me through the high grass one more time. So that was for my mom. For anyone who's dealt with someone suffering from dementia, maybe that will say something to you. So, you know, I've never read this one out loud before, so I'm excited. When you said the guzzle, I was like, all right, I'm going to bring up a Pantoum. So kind of excited. Yeah, so this Pantoum actually just about a month and a half ago, I think it was or so, won an award for a journal. So, and I was really excited because this is the first Pantoum I'd ever written. So I'm not absolutely atrociously horrible at it, apparently. So this involves Minidoka. So Minidoka is a Japanese internment camp. My wife's Japanese, her grandmother, who's still with us, she's 97, 98, she was pretty much raised in 3 different Japanese internment camps in her youth. So that's what Minidoka is, for those who aren't aware. And there are little things in here like a delicate black tea set, which we actually still have because they weren't allowed to bring things there. So as a little kid, she just had this one thing she took from her bedroom, and she hid it under the floorboards of the internment camp. And we actually have it here. So little references there. And her husband, also a Japanese American, bombed. There was the very famous World War II bombing unit that were Japanese Americans bombing Japan. So that gets referenced in here too, just so you know. So this is Pantoum for what remains of Minidoka. A hand-woven doll, palmed tightly so the soldiers wouldn't notice. That delicate black tea set you buried under loose floorboards, still unbroken. The nearness of stars caressed through a rough aperture in the barracks roof, and all that rain seeping in to wet your dreams. That delicate black tea set you buried under loose floorboards like a body, and the body of your uncle forever bent beneath plow and push. The aperture in the barracks roof where all that rain seeped in to wet your dreams, opened the sky some nights to that old white farmhouse you'd never see again. Like a body bent beneath plow and push, your future husband out there emptying the belly of a bomber on his own country for love of this one. How he opened the sky some nights to fire. How they burnt down the old farmhouse in your absence. How you cannot stop returning to it like a lost family name. Emptying the belly of a bomber on his own country for love of this one. Still unbroken, the nearness of stars once caressed through the rough aperture of light's absence. How you cannot stop returning to it, this Americanized family name. And this hand-woven doll at 94, you still palm tightly so none of us will notice. Okay, so there's one for my wife's grandmother. So yeah, I'm just going to read a couple quick poems here. So from these books. So yeah, just a couple from, where's that? Scale Model Country Down, just not. So this one, if you've ever, at some point in school perhaps, you had to dissect things. I remember this in middle school, and we had to do butterflies. So maybe you have that very nice visual in your head. A careful study, post-mortem. No matter how many pins hold it down, the wings tremble. In your mind, still attempting flight. Like any child, terrified, every body is part yours. Even this strange mess, speckled black and gold, like midnight in the stars that define its edges. That there are edges at all hurts. Shouldn't the dead carry less weight, less expectation of awe? The pages begin to fill themselves, measurements and comparisons, organs so small you're not sure that all interiors aren't ash. Like what rests, useless in cooling, beneath the fire your father last night showed you how to light. Mostly, he said, so you won't keep asking when your mother will return. Where's that? There we go. So these are slightly more personal and a couple that are a bit more socio-political. So this one, Forever Daylight. So I'm sure everyone talks about, or no, people that have been to places where it's dark for an entire month at a time, but no one ever talks about the fact that it's also light for that amount of time. And I experienced that, and I have to say the light was worse. This is Forever Daylight. Again, the sun fails to dissolve, and I cannot wash the light from your hair. The world stands excruciatingly visible, stuck in its own song. What the night must steal to give us something to rediscover about ourselves never leaves our hands. No gauzy horizon, no ambiguity, nothing to unlearn. We draw the curtains, but even this is a candle. Even the bent heads of ice caps melting, the fjords rising. These sheep are not the dreaming kind. Rugged, furious, walking cliff sides as if water. That something can have no gods at all and still be holy. That we are finally seeing ourselves in the full light of another's eyes and cannot stop flinching. Our throats gone gravel and road salt from all this ceaseless awe. I definitely don't suggest ever going on a vacation to a place that is either light or dark for a significant period of time in a potentially fragile relationship. I'm just gonna put it out there. If you've ever worried about it, don't go to Iceland in November or whatever it was. If you're not 100% sure about that relationship, I can tell you. So yeah, I'm gonna read a couple poems from The Drowning House, which lean this still similar themes, but lean a bit more toward the sociopolitical. And a number of the poems in this book had a lot of fun with this, is taking a historical figure, usually someone who dealt with a significant amount of suffering, and then pairing it often with an artist, and then trying to use the visuals from the artist to tell the individual story. So this poem, first one I wrote like this, is called Emmett Till, and hopefully everyone knows who Emmett Till is. I'm not sure how, I'm 40 now, I'm not sure how the public school system is. Hopefully everyone knows who Emmett Till is. Emmett Till, Edward Hopper. Hey, we're on the internet, Google him if you know. So these are all Edward Hopper images that I'm using to tell this story. In your mouth, 1,000 unpainted churches, steeples snapped off like baby teeth in an apple, rusted bells trying so hard to ring, ringing. Crows along your restless edges where clapboard meets sky in storm. The sky is always storming. Skin can be its own broken republic. Everywhere, overgrown rail tracks and a few white people who don't know what to say to each other. Not anymore. Truth is married to the surface of things. The surface is a lighthouse overlooking wreck after wreck. No ships here anymore. Nothing left to cradle and swing safely into harbor. All sorts of things swing. All sorts of women sit on the knife's edge of a bed, half naked, staring out a half naked window. All sorts of men are tossed over bridges after whistling a little tune. Come back, crows, bells, edges. In you, let the night see its face. So all the visuals there are directly pulled from that, but much as I love Edward Hopper, something I've always wondered is why is it always tons of white people looking very, very, very sad and disconnected from each other? There's always a man or woman sitting on a bed, just staring at a window or at a wall, or not talking to each other at a diner. And somehow that spoke to the Emmett Till story for me. I'm not quite sure why. Always trying to bring, kind of like that, with trying to bring, one of the things I love to do is trying to bring the history into the present. So this poem is called The Dead Just Need to Be Seen, Not Forgiven. A lot of the poems speak to my privilege, and this is one of them. That old man in the photo our family never talks about, known best for tracking runaway slaves. Tonight, we drag him from the basement up these loose wood stairs and set out a plate of salted cabbage and rabbit. So long since I've asked why the empty chair at our table. With all the warmth the body has to give, we give up on measuring the darkness between men. Dust and dusk enter and are wiped from the room. The names we call each other linger luminous and savage. Still. That tree I used to hang tires from holds tight its dead centuries. The light swinging from its branches we call rope-like, which implies there's no longer rope. Tonight, we'll wash the burnt out stars from his hair and all the crumbs from his beard. The misfired bullet of his voice we let burn as it must. Just so you know, that is not an actual relative of mine. That is a made up relative. But who knows? As a Caucasian whose family's been here for a couple hundred years, who knows who's back there? Hopefully not that individual, but either way. So I'm just gonna read two poems and I'll be done. So this poem, when I'd read this fact, it was like, this has to be the title of a poem. Harps strung with gut still make music after 2,000 years. I was like, how can that not be a poem when I read that title? So that's the title. And it is a fact. I think it's cat gut. It's like 2,000 years. 12 unpaired shoes hang windless from a wire, threading streetlights together. Eventually, swallows reclaim them. Without the need for twig and try, they raise a family in our cavities. My son points a toy gun to my temple. Each bang reminds me my father was once a mountain that crumbled beneath me. How the sheer terror of cradling so much weightlessness can flatten landscapes, raise cities, or, the birds remind me, return warmth to discarded things. That there is nothing that is not home still hurts more than the imagined bullet drilling into my skull. I cannot fail to forgive it. As he tightens his tiny lips and blows through me, finally, I am song. All right, just one more quick poem, end with that. And I do, not that it matters to any of you, but I always feel awkward with these. The son in all four of my more recent books, they're 5.5 now. My son is actually my daughter now. So I feel really awkward saying son in all these poems, but that's how I wrote them. And that's the themes. So passing down masculinity and stuff. So my apologies to my beautiful daughter, Abby. So this is just my last poem. It's called Object Permanence, going back to when they were 10. Everything's still here. Even after hidden behind the world's back, stolen from view, presumably erased from existence. Like a loved one you have no photograph to grieve. Like that red wagon my father broke and scrapped and said I had only imagined dragging through our garden, which once and therefore still throbbed the morning green. If leaving infancy behind has taught me anything, it's never assumed the disappeared cannot return. If what I've lost over the years is a lesson, it's that nothing returns in its original form. See, my mother would say, how the pale blue ball of thrown up into the sky is now a moon, gorgeously unattainable. Please see me like that. Thank you so much.
Lovely. Thank you. This must be Amy's turn.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for sticking around to the end here with me. And thank you to John for putting this reading together. It was a little bit of work and it took us a little bit of time, but it's really lovely to be together and to read poems. this has been a strange time to have a book come out, and I haven't had a lot of opportunities to read, so of course I'm not going to read from the book. But this is what it looks like, and I did it with a local artist, a local Portland artist named Samantha Wall, who also actually, as it turns out, did the cover of Ashley's book Spectra. But this is what we did. I did a long poem, and had it sort of in conversation with a series of her 31 fists that she did, which were done for every day of the first 31 days of the Trump presidency. So this was our little book of resistance together, and it felt really good to make. So if you follow the link, that's the book that you'll go to, is a little chapbook by Ursus that Ursus Americanus put out. So I have a tendency these days to write either short poems or really long poems. And often the really long poems come from a series of serial poems where I'm just kind of writing a continuation of the same thoughts, and then just kind of revisiting it over and over. So these poems are all called Entry, so I'm just going to go straight through them. And some of them look a little different on the page, but most of them have something to do with that idea of like being in the present, but the past sort of affecting our projections and visions of the future in sort of like this near prophecy visionary kind of way. So this is me working through some of the way that history implants itself in our future. I said mine so many times, I began to believe me. Pointing to the agate mine, the toaster oven mine, the mound of rhizome mine. It does not make sense now, all that ownership. Spring was a massacre of sparkling cooked iris. Every millionth time we look, we find something that matters. Waiting for astonishment, patting what is broken into place, afraid what I leave behind will not be cared for. This abundance will lose elasticity, crisped and forgetful, that with each decade, the second half of my life grows longer. If anyone is to dismantle this wood frame house, it should be me. Not knowing who is also recognizing a part of me, slices. Transparency poorly governing the lie. This man pretended to not care and then did not care. A beeping when backing up noise that does not end. Mourning dove in the middle of the neighborhood. We had to stand stock still. Crickets are the better diviner. Warm milk for the mouth. Once heard cannot be unheard. Do not swallow if swallowing is a response to pressure on the lips. Cruelty, I think I could not do, I have done. There are no trees that love you back. A fall, the fallen, a fallen man. I am fell. Who doesn't want magic? Blood sprayed over their mouth as they are announcing death by material conditions. Down, down, baby. Here are our floor lines. Finding the fast pivot is my complaint. The occult takes guts. Eat me whole. This isn't an orthodox metaphor, it's how we speak. Fallopian, squeezed to nothing, crowded by love, a knuckle kissed. Normally, we want our heads gifted and ready for the wall mount. Beauty is violence. There is no beauty. Everything murdered is beautiful. Time measured or by distance, it's the lure of empty space. a precise execution, a complicated series of gestures perfected through practice to become Catholic. Despite our slim efforts, the wink remains after the eye is cut out. For the vow we bring copper, laugh. Time is recorded by what noise our ears distinguish, length of echo. If here, it means we have begun the signature. Feet in the mucky shore, squat for the heron, for the dragonfly, for the sweet sturgeon. Unbuckle the palm and draw out pollen. Reach for the rock and bash through sternum, tired of anything resistant. Remember the shoppers who took pictures, who could not look. Remember the aura of their fascination. When the bars bent, though, we stayed, waited to be gathered. Mud stirs in the waters at the headway. Eagles watch glass folding in the bonfire. Break off my calf. Eat first the heel. To remain is joy to remain. Mouth a tunnel of praise. Inside this house, negotiate numerous covenants. Regularly take out bins, buy things, exterminate vermin, feed ourselves, party till we cannot see, eat facing the television. Who gains the yoke of covenant now, holding out soft cups of organs? Flood takes the garden, river inches closer to foundation. Shuffle through the house, where all covenants stand, toenails scraping floorboards, hair brushing the ceiling, so dense. Use butter to squeeze between bodies. It takes an hour to get to the bathroom. Mouth, a wedding stone. Open sternum, a reservoir for oil. Vehicle, a ladder for new fish to climb. Mouth, a tunnel of praise, growing wider than the river, gold vein, geyser. Face, the peeled back lily. Sound outshined in the shriek of collective loss, engulfing wartime music on speaker in a wartime factory, forever boat, endlessly bailed. A while back, the secret whispered itself and became flesh. How we worked became seed, but the seed was dust. At night, lasers shot themselves straight into the sky while we crowded together, bending our necks, the sources searing our eyes. Patterns in the cloud cover resembled mandala. Mothers mothered too much. We did not dance. We saw the shore receding. Land moved because we moved it. What erupted from the mouth were shoes. Potato vines bore buried knife spores. The trees fruited fuzzy, tiny semi-automatics. We used hot glue guns to affix currency to our skin. We shone. Shallow sprinkles of water. Roots grow to the surface and then blown over by the softest breath. Our language is like that sometimes. The contradictory necessity, parasitic semiotics, holdover where there is a state, culture to have a face. Language puts names to faces. We think we are such revolutionaries. This sense of before and after is garbage, as if truth is one thing, event, then another. The lilies were lost in a freak hailstorm. Nobody wakes up white from a shock. That's just not science. We are hypocrites with our diamond ring commitments, dehydrated tongues wagging, ready to lick the next vacated seat, accounting for fuzzy time, blackout fucking, grease in the bed. We possess more than we need of money, housing, health, a politicization of the self that expands and contracts to meet social fashion and function. Run to the end of the block and back, light a smoke. That fifth cost $7. Fifth, that $7 cost. Dollar cost that 7/5. Cost that fifth dollar $7. Drowning in the greater meaning of me. Now is not the time for threats. You better chop that head clean off. Last one. There is some confusion about the use of we, how it started. Damp woods are a we. Calico cats are a we. Driving to Las Cruces in the Naugahyde back seat, windows down in summer is a we. We is automatically historical, yes, and becoming the number of bosses we've had now that we're never not begging. The pivot of love from that which is seen to that which is eaten. Now is as good a time as any to learn to graft. Forsythia is a we. Dianthus is a we. Spirea, a we. Cotoneaster, whose berries feed the robin, is a we. Viburnum, drowning in aphids, is a we. Crocosmia, a we. Hellebores, a we. Cultivate anger as a way to direct the piss away from our own feet. Aging out again into the thickness of life beyond young hope. Pull up the floorboards. Naming is a function of we. We are still in love, and a test to existence is all that is. We woke from the dream of our feet battered by rolling rocks in the tide, our bodies arching into the forest. Ask, how far, how far, how far back? Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Amie. Anybody have any questions? I don't see any in the chat yet. You're welcome to type a question in there or pop up on screen if you like. I know poetry readings don't have as many questions as other kinds of readings. Well, if no one has any questions, wait, Dale, are you popping up to ask a question? Take this moment to remind you that this is being recorded. So if you know folks weren't able to make it, I'll have it a link up on the event webpage for our YouTube channel later tonight. So you can go and point folks that way. All right, Dale's question. Which book of John's contains the poem Death is a Work in Progress?
Absolutely. That particular poem is in a book called Skin Memory that came out in 2019 from the University of Nebraska Press. And if Annie Blooms has it, get it through Annie Blooms, please. So you can find out with them. If not, obviously it's at all the normal places, or you can contact me if you want to sign one.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Annie Blooms first.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thanks. We really appreciate your support. If you're able to buy books from us, it helps us put on these events. Sara and Amie, felt your words. Thanks, Dale. Well, thank you, everyone. If there are no other questions, we're going to call it a night. It was a really wonderful reading. Thank you to all you poets. Thanks to John for organizing this. It's really great to hear all your wonderful poems. And everyone, have a really good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. You all are beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.